Justin, welcome to the show. I'm really excited to have you, but it's not simply because of the title of your book, Your Baby's Ugly, Maximize the Value of Your Business or You Have Nothing to Sell. But I do love the title. I mean, it's just it catches the eye and it's like, hey, wow, what's this about? So I don't know where you want to start, but I think we're gonna have a great conversation.
Man, David, thanks for having me. Yeah, that title actually came from my dad. My dad's an old country boy. I was born and raised in South Georgia. And as an old country boy, he would say this statement, David. He would say, son, you never tell a woman their baby's ugly, but if you do, you better run or duck because they're coming after you. And so, whenever I was writing this book around for business owners, to almost like as a dad now with three children, sometimes I just want to grab them by their shoulders and I want to shake them a little bit and say, "Have you lost your ever loving mind?" It's almost like that mindset when I was writing this book that I wish I could reach through this microphone or through the screen and reach business owners, give them a hug, and say, "Look, wake up! Unless you make some monumental changes, then what you dream of may not come true." And the statistics around business owners, specifically the amount of wealth that they lose because they're not preparing properly, it breaks my heart. So that's the reason for the book. And that title is obviously makes people laugh.
Well, I think it's great, and I run into that with my consulting business and coaching. And to be candid with you, I've run into it making the mistake myself. So the message I got, the direction I got in life was go help people avoid my mistakes. It wasn't that you're so smart. I find that it's so easy to get caught up being busy instead of focused on what's truly building the business, building my team, and going for those one things, those BHAGs, those ones that you only have so much time, but you get in a comfort zone. That's the ugly baby. Is that the ugly baby? You're in this comfort zone.
It's partially that. The way I talk about it is business owners, we work hard. We do the hard work. As we know, those entrepreneurs who are listening to me, like, dude, trust me, I know I work hard. I got the blisters and the calluses and the blood and the tears. I know I work hard. Here's the problem, though, David. We don't do the difficult work. We don't do the things that actually cause the business to move. So that's part of the ugly baby. But here's the reality. For business owners, 80% of our net worth is our business, statistically speaking. So unlike our W-2 employees or our W-2 counterparts who perhaps have been investing money into their 401k all these years, or perhaps they bought real estate, many business owners, statistically speaking, we have invested back into our companies. We've sacrificed our own livelihood for the care of our customer, our team members, our communities, our charities, everything but ourselves. And statistically speaking, 80% of our net worth is our business. Now, here's where it gets sad. And this is where the wake-up call happened for me personally. I remember I was on a mountaintop in West Virginia looking across the vista. It was beautiful, David. Fall day. I mean, just gorgeous. And my friend, who's 56 years old at the time, he said, Justin, I'm broke. Now, this guy, by all accounts, is a successful business owner. Millions of dollars a year in revenue, millions of dollars worth of heavy equipment that sits down in his yard, paid for a house, exotic cars, exotic vacations. But what he said in that moment, he said, Justin, I'm broke. And I'm like, well, what do you mean you're broke? Now, I knew what he was going to, but I wanted him to say it. I wanted him to feel the pain of what he's fixing to say. He said, Justin, I live this lifestyle that's unsustainable. My business has high cash flow, but if I'm not working, I cannot maintain my lifestyle. And he's correct. And that's the statistic where your baby's ugly, because whenever the time comes, whenever either by purpose or by default, either by choice or by default, you decide that you've got to leave your business, whether it's a health issue, an age issue, an endurance issue, statistically speaking, only 20 to 30% of business owners are able to transact their company, or only 20 to 30% of business owners are able to sell their company for $1. So if currently we have 30 million business owners in the United States, with statistically speaking, roughly about 67% of business owners today are baby boomers, the rest of us are Gen X in the small business world as a unit, we're looking at about $13 trillion that are supposed to transact over the next 6 to 7 years. Out of that, $8 trillion is just going to evaporate. So the book, Your Baby's Ugly, is around, look, you've got this asset, this business. Yes, there you are working hard, but you've got to do the difficult work in order to make this business become ultimately a value play where somebody, as often say on video, is willing to pay you some money for this business. And unless you do the difficult work, unless you look at your business through the lens of an investor, your business is going to be ugly to them. So that's the idea behind it.
But let's put some meat on the bone.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know whether you have a story you can give me. You probably have hundreds of stories. But what does that mean? Now, the guy you explained, he had a very expensive lifestyle, though he's not going to qualify for the minimalist club. Okay. So, which is fine. That's his choice. However, what he indicated by his comment was what you're alluding to is that he wasn't looking at what if I wake up tomorrow and I have to sell? Health reason, change of mind, whatever it might be. He hasn't really built the business where he's maximized the profitability. If that is that what I'm understanding? I mean, give me an
Yeah,
I need an
let's flesh
example.
this out.
Yeah,
Let's flesh this out. So the way, and this is going to surprise you. This is going to surprise the audience. A profitable business is not a valuable business. So let me say it this way. I've seen 1,000 businesses. I see thousands of businesses per year. I've had the privilege of working with hundreds of thousands of business owners over my 30-year career as a business owner. And I've seen a lot of businesses which are profitable. They may provide a good income. This individual is making $400,000 a year to sustain his life. He had everything paid for. Everything was paid for. He was paying $400,000 a year from the business. Now, I've seen a lot of businesses which provide an income, but just because they're profitable doesn't mean they're valuable. But if we reverse the methodology, I've never seen a valuable business that someone's willing to pay you for that's not profitable. You know, if it's valuable, profit comes. If it's profitable, value's not always there. And that's the misnomer that we business owners have. So here this individual is, to finish that story out, he's making $400,000 a year. He does have a paid for house. Paid for, good to go. He has some paid for brand new car, GMC 2,500, $100,000 vehicle paid for. But he's living vicariously through his business. So he's writing himself a check of $400,000 a year. He is taking trips through his business. He's paying his health insurance. He's paying his cell phone. He's paying so many things through this business. And when you put it all together, like so many business owners, there's about another 20, 30% of revenue that's tied up in our business that we live vicariously through our business. Obviously, as I disclaimed that, with the advice of our CPAs and our tax advisors. But nonetheless, he's living vicariously through his business. Here's what he realized. I had this yard down here, this lot that I could sell for $200,000-$300,000. And I have $2.5 million worth of equipment down here that I could sell. But when
yeah.
I sell that, I'm going to pay recapture tax. And I'm literally going to get 40 cents on the dollar for all my stuff. So here I am now at the age of 50, and I could sell everything that I have within my business. I could liquidate the business and I get maybe $1.5 million, which will last me 3-4 years. So that's the reality of the business owner we're facing. So when I talk about value, what I'm looking at is let's build a business, and I'll give you another story here. Let's build a business to where somebody will look at that business and say, oh my goodness, you built the golden goose, the proverbial goose. You built a business that I'm going to pay you for. In my own life, that same individual that on the mountaintop, I came back. This is my own story. I came back to Knoxville, Tennessee, where I live in the beautiful Tennessee Smoky Mountains here, walked away from $250,000 recurring revenue, launched a brand spanking new business with less than $30,000 year one in revenue. 48 months later, experienced an 8-figure exit. 48 months. So I built a business focused on value. And in doing so, here I am in my mid 40s now. Unlike this 55-year-old who spent 40 years in business, here I am in my mid 40s now experiencing a value play and having income and lifestyle that I can sustain moving forward. So I see so many business owners, David, that they don't take a step back and say, how much is this business really affording me? What's this lifestyle that I have through this business? I work hard, but I make a lot of money, or I make whatever the money is. Then when they start figuring out the backwards engineering, we call it the wealth gap or the value gap, two gaps that we calculate for business owners. When they start backwards engineering, their business is not valuable enough for them to bridge that gap. So what do? Here's where it gets crazy. Business owners will then, I've seen this a dozen times, hundreds of times, they'll run out and say, well, what I need to do is I need to produce more income. If I get more income, now my business is going to be worth more. No. There's a thing called company specific risk that people buy businesses know that you're going to increase the volatility of your business and it's not going to be more valuable. It's going to be more of a headache. So whenever I start talking about value play, this is what your book, Your Baby's Ugly is it walks through methodology on how an investor looks at your business and how you as a business owner can make some internal tweaks, which I know we'll dive into these little nuggets here, how you can make the internal tweaks in your business to make it valuable while at the same time providing that lifestyle that you've been living or want to live.
So once again, I want to peel back the onion. I want to get to the meat on the bone.
Oh yeah.
So give me an example. Let's walk through some different stories of people you've worked with, and here's where they were, here are the changes they made, and here's what happens. Because I know we've got people in the audience. So this is posting as our first podcast in 2025.
Cool.
Okay. So we're going to promote big time. Hey, you got to look at this because if you got to make 2025 your best year ever. And Justin's got some great advice for you, but they're going to need to understand, well, yeah, I agree with everything Justin's saying. And they'll give you nodding head syndrome. Yeah, I got it. And go and do nothing. So how do we give them some specifics that what they can look at or what they can do?
Yeah, so I came back and built a freedom formula is what I call it, the freedom formula. And I'll bridge this through a client story that is kind of fun to dissect. The very first point in the freedom formula is you have to know your current business value and how much value is buried underneath the covers, how much value is pent up in your business. And if you just modified some things in the business, that it would make it more attractive for a buyer. So I remember this one individual who happened to be a financial advisor, but mind you, it's kind of crazy. He hired me as building a financial advisory practice to come in and help him build his. And I remember his value at the time was $3.2 million. That was his value of his firm. But he had a value gap. In other words, if we compared his business to a best in class business out there making the same amount of money in the same zip code, he had about $2 million of value that was underneath the covers that if he just made some infrastructure improvements, he would have been able to sell it for about $2 million more. So we found his value and then we found his value gap. And he's like, holy cow, Goodbread, I got $3 million business. That's good. But you're telling me I could have a $5 million business if I just made some internal changes. I'm like, absolutely. Okay, what are those changes? So we move to the next phase. I call it the 8 squared methodology. In every business, there are 8 areas of business, every business. And you as a consultant, you know this. You have the planning department. Where are we going and why are we going there? Leadership is number 2. Sales and marketing, 3 and 4. Our team, our people is number 5. Our operational efficiency, our operations is number 6. Our finance department, and then our risk management department. So every business has 8 areas that comprise that business. And on top of that, inside each business, there are 8 drivers of value. Now, each one of these drivers are directly applicable to each of these 8 areas. So for example, the very first driver is dependency. Now that could be dependency on the owner. That's the most popular one out there. Can we create the owner where he's not the epicenter of the business? But is the dependency risk also on one specific ad that's bringing you all the customers? What happens if that ad or that platform causes a problem? That's the dependency risk. That's in the marketing department. Or the dependency risk could be a legislative matter that if it changes could cause you some devastation. So there are 8 value drivers. Each value driver applies to all areas of business. So the value drivers, so I can lay this foundation out, is because you won't meet. Here we go. You got dependency risk. You've got profit history. What is the trend rates of the company? You've got sustainability. How sustainable is the company going forward in terms of revenue, in terms of cash flow, in terms of client leads, in terms of everything? What is your client loyalty and concentration and retention? So there's a client metric. By the way, the client applies to all 8 areas of the business. What is the cash flow? Is it stable? Does it have recurring revenue models to it? A number of things there. What is the expansion opportunity? What is your market differentiation? And what is your owner dependence or your operational independence? So for this business owner, he realized, okay, I got a $3 million business. The data points are saying with these metrics, 64 metrics here, if you apply 8 by 8, 64 metrics, this showing that we have $2 million of pent up demand here or pent up value. How do we unlock it? So we began running programs, running data points using backwards engineering as an appraiser, backwards engineering as an investor. And all this individual had to do to move the needle from 3 million to 4 million in this case was he needed to hire a key manager. In this case, it was going to be a CMO. In this case, he needed to restructure and outsource his accounting. Right now, he had an individual, his wife, running the accounting books. That didn't help him on the valuation. We wanted to get it outsourced. And then he had an operational dependency of one key employee in the company. So we moved 3 things over a period of 9 months. Okay. 3 things over a period of 9 months. 9 months later, he gets an offer, not for $5 million, but for $7 million. Okay. So where we appraised it at 3, he made some key improvements in the company that were his particular metrics that we had to improve. He ended up getting a $7 million No clawbacks. In other words, not going to give you 7 and we're going to hold back 4. There wasn't an earn out inside there saying we're going to pay you 7, but we're only going to give you 3 up front and you have to earn the other 4. None of that. He got paid 7 million cash for that offer. So whenever you
So,
look at a business owner, you're trying to walk through this methodology to say, hey, Mr. Business Owner, what's your value? How do we improve it? And how do we now move that needle?
so in that situation, so he hired a CMO. It's kind of funny, a financial planner, and he had to outsource the accounting, but it does
Yep,
make
yep,
sense since his wife was doing it. And then the one key employee, was the one key employee somebody who had relationships
yep,
for their accounts? Okay.
yes.
And so I'm curious, what did the CMO do that caused traction? And then what happened with the key employee? Did they just kind of make it so it wasn't such a liability, so other people shared those relationships, or was it something else?
Yeah, so in the finance world, it's the most compliance ridden industry there is. For anybody who's ever dealt with finance, it is hard. You got the SEC, you got FINRA, you got all these states, and it's just a lot of regulations on top of regulations. So because of that, marketing is often the very last thing that financial advisors do. And so in this case, we hired this individual hired a CMO that helped him narrow down his avatar. It helped him get the internal marketing message correct to his current clients. It helped him create the voice in the community, simultaneously remove this individual as the talking head of the company. And now they brought a team approach into it. So that was how the CMO worked. And what we did is enough traction to get the investor to say, hey, this owner is not the business around marketing. That was priority number one. To your second question, yes, in the financial world or in any business, every business, the business owner is often the glue that holds everything together, right? They're the best salesperson. They know their product, they know the service. The financial advisor was no different. And so in this case, we had to develop a system to where we created number one, the key advisor assistant or junior advisor, let's call him. We had to pair another advisor alongside them to create almost like a contingency plan, almost like if one were to leave, we have someone else there that the customers know. So we created a
Yeah.
contingency plan and we moved that dependency risk around that one party. But the same is true. I'll give you another fun story. I've got a pool company, a swimming pool company. Okay, swimming pool companies making millions of dollars building custom swimming pools, and where we go to value in the saying it's like $1.8 million, and it's basically an equipment sale. Just basically just selling all the bobcats and the dump trucks and the excavators and all the stuff that would use to put swimming pools in. And I'm like, hey guys, you're missing one key component. If we did this one thing, we now could triple or quadruple your business value. And that is we need a recurring revenue. Every business,
Exactly.
every business can have recurring revenue, period. Mic drop, case closed. And he's like, well, I can't do recurring revenue. I'm like, yeah, you can. Let's create a pool cleaning company. Let's create a division that just cleans the swimming pools. Let's market it. And let's put all of our marketing dollars in the pool cleaning company. So they went from 0 in pools to clean to over 1,000 using a right marketing approach within 2 years. The value of that business went from 1.8 to just over 12 million in 2 years' time. So it's knowing how to look at the company and structure it through, make it where an investor is going to say, oh my goodness, I see an asset here that will provide me a return on my investment. How do I position it so they're gonna buy it from us?
Yeah, and the recurring revenue. So I work mainly with IT managed service providers, and they're all about monthly recurring revenue. What's the MRR? And that's really the value of the company. 30 years ago, it was about product sales. It's
Well,
not that anymore.
well, David, in that industry, and I don't know the multiple off the top of my head, but I think I remember seeing 6 to 8x in that industry, depending on where the revenue range was,
Yeah.
because of that recurring revenue model. Whereas, let's say a tire change company may only have a 2 to 3x multiple, right? So the recurring revenue is one of those value drivers that can move a business rapidly.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the current multiple is. My understanding is that most of them are based off the profitability or
EBITDA.
the or the monthly recurring revenue. They don't really look at the product sales piece. They do take into account the project sales because those are profitable. But it's pretty interesting. So I like what you said about what they did in that financial services company. Um, and then this also seems to relate to your other book, The Ultimate Sale. And so what's the difference between the two books?
So the ultimate sale talks to a concept that I'll explain here that if every business owner can grasp it, it will change your life for the rest of your life. It looks at both sides of the coin. So the ultimate sale says, here's how your business will be looked at through the eyes of a buyer. Your Baby's Ugly says, here's how to improve your business through the eyes of the buyer. And then my new book is going to come out. It's gonna be great. I hope Your Baby's Ugly was #1 Wall Street Journal, #56 USA Today. I'm hoping my new book can get New York Times bestsellers. My goal. We'll see. But so in the ultimate sale, what it outlines is this, and this is a little bit of math, but I hope business owner, if you're listening to me, you actually take a pen out and do this exercise because it will change the way you look at your business. I'm going to make a statement here. You may or may not agree with me, but I believe that business is a wealth generation tool, and that's it. It's a tool to generate wealth. Yes, we do provide good service to our customers. Yes, we do provide good value to our communities. Yes, that's true. Yes, we do provide for our charities and for our employees and for our vendors. Yes, we do all those things. But at the end of the day, it's an asset that's here to generate wealth for ourselves, our employees, and our communities. So if that's being said, we have to look at our business through two lenses. Davis, go back to your example. Whenever a business like the SaaS business will sell, they're going to look at a revenue side. That may be EBITDA or recurring revenue or EBOC or some sort of a metric. There's a number metric. So let's say hypothetically, that's $100,000. Well, with that $100,000 for small businesses, there's going to be a multiple that is applied to that 100,000. So let's say, for example, that your business is $100,000 in revenue and the multiple is 2. That means that your business is valued at 200,000. 100,000 times 2 is 200,000.
Yeah.
What we do as business owners, and I made this statement earlier, and I don't want to skim over it, is whenever we start thinking about, man, how do I grow my value? How do I build this thing where it's a true asset? We think, because we're sales type people, because we know our product, we think, well, let's go out and let's take our revenue from 100,000, let's go to 200,000. And so if we move from 100 to 200,000 and our multiple is 2, we now have a value of 400,000. So 200,000 times 2 is 400,000. Great. We increased our value from 100,000, from 200,000 to 400,000. We doubled our value, except that we just doubled our frustrations. We just doubled all of our team's anger at us. We just doubled our marketing. We doubled what's called company specific risk. And so in the ultimate sale and Your Baby's Ugly, those two books come together that says, look, I hear you, Mr. Business Owner, Mrs. Business Owner. I know you know your product. Why don't, instead of going out and trying to make more sales, trying to push more volatility or velocity through your business, why don't we focus on that multiple? What if we could double the multiple? What if our business was producing 100,000 in revenue, but instead of 2, we could grow it to 4? We actually get $400,000 in value without working twice as hard. So that's the underlying that 8x8 squared methodology. Here's what happens with every single client. I could have many case studies you want to hear right now. What happens is once they get their mind off of chasing the revenue and they get their mind on building the systems and making it a golden goose, making it where it's a machine, they end up doubling, or maybe they move to 3x. Maybe they move from 2 to 3 on the multiple, but what happens is they get more efficient, the revenue follows. So they go from 100,000 to 150, and they move from 2 to 3. 150 times 3 is 450,000. They actually create more value by moving both sides of the coin by accident than they would if they were focused on one side or the other. So the application is, I'm going to take you to a landscape company now, okay? A grass cutting company. Everybody's had a grass cutting company. I did at 15, right? Got the little lawnmower, threw it in the back of the truck, went down to Mr. Brown's house. He paid me $40 to cut. Very first time I ever made money. You take a grass cutting company that may have 1,000 contracts, and they're focused on getting more revenue. And if they just took a step back and they said, how is it that we're not going to take on more clients, but we're going to increase our profitability, our efficiency? How can we create routes that create less gas, that uses less gas in our trucks? How can we create checklists to keep our employees from leaving tools back at the shop and having to run back to the shop midday? All these little systems of efficiency. In this case, for this landscape company, we froze. We didn't bring on any more new revenue, no more new customers. All we did was work on the business and turn it into a machine. The owner stepped away for 6 months, let the machine run with his operators. The business ended up doubling in value in 36 months. They went from a $4 million business to an $8 million business without intentionally trying to get more sales.
So what I love about what you're saying, Justin, may or may not surprise you, but in early 2003, I came to the realization I had leadership attributes, but no skills. And the big thing for me was I was not systematic. So whenever you talk about systems, I light up. Okay. So I have my own leadership system called Three Strands of Leadership. First strand, which is the foundation, is systematic power. So you've
What does
got to
that mean,
have
David?
systematic power.
Yeah.
It means that it's the foundation for what you do as a leader. So, how you define priorities, how you make decisions, how you hold people accountable, and then the four management disciplines. How do you hire, manage, develop, and retain people?
Gotcha.
And if you get those systems in place, then you've got a foundation for how you want to build your business. And then there's two other strands that are meaningful work, which is the heart, the energy, and then sincere gratitude. When you value your people, they stay with you, they give it their all when they're connected to meaningful work, and they know they can count on you, etc. But my point is, talk to me more about systems, because the power of systems, not only creating the system, identifying the systems, creating the systems, but how you maintain. What system do you have for maintaining and continuously improving the system?
Yeah, so let's tear that apart on first creating the system, right? Because we got to create it before we can maintain it. But before we can create it, we have to identify the flow of the system.
Yeah.
So the way I describe it is when I'm talking with any business owner, again, not industry specific, and then we can apply it to a story at some point here. The way my simple country boy mind works is a funnel. We've all used a funnel perhaps in our life, maybe putting gas in the lawnmower. Go back to that example, right? You have a big end, for those of you who are not watching, maybe just listening, you have a big end and you pour the liquid, it sloshes all around, and the funnel brings it down to a very concise stream that allows you to get it into a much smaller hole. Turn the funnel on its side. Every business is a funnel sideways. You have marketing, which brings people to actually say, hey, this company over here has a product or a service that I may need. That marketing funnels them down to the point to where a sale takes place. They say, yes, I need this product or service. Now they become a client or a customer, whatever it is. So now they're at the point of that funnel where the little stem now starts to stick out and get the velocity. That is the operations of a company. The operations is inclusive of product delivery. It's inclusive of employees, payroll, everything that goes in to make sure that you're able to deliver on the very promises that you told them before they were a customer that you could do. So if I think about this, and what I often teach clients to do as they're trying to figure out a system is let's walk an ideal customer, whatever your service is, through what it looks like. What is that experience, the customer experience? Because I believe the customer experience matters more than anything else in business, outside maybe your employee experience. So if we can get the customer experience laid down, whenever they say yes, for example, I want to work with you, do you have to have a contract? How is that contract delivered? Is it electronic? Are there follow-up emails? Are the emails automated? What happens if they don't sign it? What happens if they do sign it? When do they move into your internal marketing campaign? So everything comes into this flow of what do you want that customer to experience? At the end of that funnel, we now go into QC. Did we deliver what we said we were going to deliver before they ever signed on the dotted line? And that's that QC department. If we didn't, now we have complaints or we have problems or we have return items if we're in the manufacturing or a product service business. So
So
in order
let me
to,
pause you for a moment. Just pause
yeah,
you for a moment.
yeah.
So I love the QC. If we're not a manufacturer, let's say you are
Let's
let's
use a
say you're an
landscape
IT
company.
managed service provider or whatever. So,
Okay.
or whomever, but who's the QC and how's that structured?
It depends on the type of business, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So every business is going to depend. So an IT service manager may be who is that client, who is the client facing individual that is actually maybe that customer relationship person, right?
yeah, yeah.
And do they have a checklist in place to make sure that what was said they were going to receive is actually received? Real life scenario happened this last week in East Tennessee. There's this big construction fulfillment company. I got to be careful. I'm trying not to give names, but they provide hard goods like wood and doors and tile and stuff to the trades. What has happened is they're now having a problem to where the product that needs to be delivered to the job site isn't on time. They tell the customer it's going to be here at this time, this day, and it's not there. We have a QC issue. We backtracked it back to the very beginning. Who the customer relationship person is getting flustered because they're like, look, I told the customer he's going to be here. We put in the order, but it wasn't delivered. take it all the way back to the very beginning when they sold that particular contract. They had a disjointed throughput, is what it's called. They had a disjointed process to where the salesperson wasn't relaying what the customer desired to the fulfillment people to the customer service person. So all we had to do was to manage that system was we went into their software. In this case, it was a CRM style software or a workflow management software. Again, every industry is going to have their own specifics, but it was a workflow management software, and we found the disconnect. We fixed it in a matter of 30 minutes. But it wasn't until this QC person had gotten flustered that they felt like they were doing dishonest work for this customer because they told them they're going to be there and it wasn't there, that we couldn't backtrack and say, hey, your sales department isn't properly recording the data points for your fulfillment manager who's not following the data points for your end user. So every customer is going to be different in that area.
Yeah, the IT managed service providers, the good ones, typically don't allow the salespeople to make a quote on project timeframes or product timeframes unless, with the product, the buyer is giving them the time frame, or with the project, some engineer or project manager saying, yeah, I've got the resources allocated where I can meet these deadlines. Because, it's an old thing in the industry where sales guy, sells to close the sale. But
I have a friend of mine that he was a client. We sold his business. We got it. It took us about 6 years to build this thing up. He bought a 3-bay garage, basically, tire change, brakes, engine repair, just not a fast lube type thing, but just a good auto repair company. And no system set up internally. They didn't, they had no funnels properly directing leads to the right salespeople. They didn't have an onboarding system. Nothing, right? So first of all, we found a good CRM, if you will, a good data management system. And then we began tracking all the different workflows and processes that were used throughout the garage, from bringing the customer in to actually how to park the car, how to pull the car into the garage. What are the systems for that? Everything down to the penny. We actually digitized it onto laptops where all of their employees could actually see how long the car was sitting in each location in that shop. Okay.
Yeah.
3 years later, oh, by the way, the QC side of this was whenever they got the garage done, we put a double check in place to make sure another mechanic, if it was a major overhaul, checked the work of the previous mechanic. So if there was like a head valve, we had this one issue where this guy was not seating the heads properly, the right torque. So we had another mechanic before they put the valve covers on there, just check the torque one last time, just as a double check on this particular issue. So we just put little checks and balances in place through the system. Fast forward, this individual took a company that he purchased for less than $1 million, moved it over a 5-year period of time, sold it for just $3.6 million. Did he increase the revenue drastically? Not much. He went up like 30% in revenue. Did his NOI, net operating income, increase drastically? Not much. But what he built was a machine. Whenever he got ready to sell, he had to sell because of health issues. One of those circumstances that often happens. But he had not been at the company for 6 months. He was on vacation. He would look at his dashboard on his system, if you will, and he could tell everything that was good and bad happening in the company. Now, that's that particular circumstance.
Yeah. Now, I bet you got this. I didn't have time to go through the entire books. I looked at chapter, that type of thing. And you're alluding to it. But am I hearing you be beneath what you're saying? That a lot of times this value where you're getting the high value is because someone's coming in and buying it for your systems, because they either are equal to or greater than what they've got, and so they see it's going to be a good match to integrate them, or it's going to up their game in what they've already got going on.
So there are several types of buyers. Okay, a strategic buyer often pays the highest premium. And what they'll do is they'll say, hey, I want to take your company and it complements my offering over here. I want to buy it and bring it into my system. So for example, when I sold my business, my financial services business consulting practice, when I sold it, the company who bought it paid me a best in class value. I mean, a ridiculous value. But what they wanted was they wanted my marketing system. That's it. They didn't want all my internal systems of how to deal with clients. They didn't want my portfolio trading, my financial plan. They wanted my marketing system because it was paramount. On the other hand, I've had clients to where they said, no, I want this recurring revenue model. Or I've had this happen where one of the 8 areas of business is your team, part of what you deal with, right? How do you work in your team? if you have a bench, if you will, if you have a bench of best in class people, I'm talking when I say best in class, every member on your team can get up at a convention and explain to the audience how you're that much better or how they can do their service. They're rock stars. Think about the Dream Team when I was a kid, right? Watching the Dream Team play. So there was a group of basketball players that were phenomenal. If you have that many employees that are phenomenal, I've seen strategic buyers come in and say, you know what? We really don't want your customers. We really don't want your systems. We want your employees. We want to bring your
Yeah.
employees in. So it's never just about the systems in its entirety. It ends up being several different parts. The way I often say is it's either your customer capital, how diversified is your customer for that particular buyer? It's your social capital. Do you have a better name in your community or in your sphere than perhaps they do? Can they use your name to actually get elevation? So, social capital. It could be your structural capital, that's your systems, right? Or it could be your human capital. It could be the team members themselves. So, those four types of capital often is what drives your value in one direction or other and what causes a strategic buyer to buy. Okay. But then there's other buyers, but that's the strategic buyer that you were talking about.
So you were talking about how you're building your business for an exit ultimately. I mean, so you're building the value of the business.
Right.
Um, how did you identify, or was it intentional that you really, I assume it was intentional, that you really built out the marketing function of your financial planning organization?
Yeah, it was definitely intentional. It was definitely intentional. So it boiled back to, okay, I'm sitting here as a mediocre at best financial advisor running a mediocre at best financial advisory practice. And the average financial advisor out there produces around $250,000 to $400,000 revenue, give or take, in top line revenue. And I'm sitting there running a very average business. And I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to create, and my goal, so backstory, David, to help audience understand this, I was raised to be an entrepreneur. At the age of 15, I had my first job. My dad said, if you don't have a job by this weekend, don't come home. And I cut grass. And my very first thing was cutting Mr. Brown's grass for $40 so I could go home. And then my mom and dad invested in mine, my brother, my sister's education and trained us to be entrepreneurs. So for 30 years, I've been a business owner. For the first 20 years, average at best, I was the typical business owner that's out there that I see everywhere where I'm doing good work. I'm working hard. I'm making a decent living, but I'm just kind of on the grind. I don't have that freedom that I dreamt about when I started my business. And so here I'm in that West Virginia mountaintop, and I'm like, holy cow, if I don't change something, I'm going to be this guy, just in a different field. I'm going to be this guy where I've got everything paid for. I got a little bit of money in the bank, but I'm not going to be able to sell this business. It's not going to work. What do I do differently? So I'm in the financial services industry. I'm like, okay, what is a disruptor? What creates more value in my industry than anything else? Like the swimming pool company before, theirs was recurring pool cleaning, right? Like for my business, it was how can I create marketing? Because financial people are always trying to find new clients and everybody has the same thing to sell, but how do you create marketing in a very compliance ridden environment? So I went back and built a business plan, hired my coach, paid him a lot of money, six figures a year with no money coming in to help me coach me to my end goal. We built performers. We knew exactly everything I teach him when we talk to our value clients. We built performers, and I said, you know what? The driver is going to be is marketing. I need to hire a CMO. So I can remember coming back from Texas, listening to Gary Vaynerchuk's Crushing It book. I was in Dallas, Texas. I just launched this business. I was getting ready to launch it. I come home and I tell my wife, hey, Emily, I'm going to hire so-and-so and we're going to pay them six figures. And she's like, okay, how much are we paying ourselves? I said, oh, don't worry. We're getting paid $60,000 a year. Now she's at home with three babies. We're homeschooling our kids and $60,000 a year. And I'm going to pay this guy over $100,000. And she said, you lost your mind. I said, nope, it's part of the plan. So we intentionally built a marketing machine, that funnel scenario, to where we would disrupt the marketplace with things that were compliance approved for the compliance industry, the SEC and FINRA, but allowed us to create a massive resurgence of clients coming in. Then we simplified our processes. Simplification scales, complication fails. So we simplified all of our systems internally in that throughput, that operational section of the funnel. We simplified it where we get a client in there and then retain them, all because of external and internal marketing. Then I started writing for Forbes, Kiplinger, wrote my books, received top five times top 100 financial advisor in the United States. So I'm everywhere because of marketing. And now my wife gets sick because of COVID, David. She gets sick because of COVID. And I'm sitting here saying, what are we going to do? We got this machine built. We could keep playing it. And she's healthy today. Thank God she's blessed. But we're sitting there looking at some stuff, and she makes a comment to me. And she says, Justin, and this is not Justin, this is not me beating my chest, but it's reality that every business owner is going to face at some point. She said, Justin, what's another $1 million going to do for us? I said, not much. We're financially secure right now. We could sell the business for, I thought it was worth $3 million. We can sell the business for $3 million. We live kind of meager. We're in East Tennessee. It's very low cost. Let's just go out and play. And then I talked to my coach and he said, Justin, he asked me this question, David, that really kind of like just hit me between the eyes, if you will. He said, Goodbread, if you had unlimited time or unlimited resources, what would you do tomorrow that you're not doing today? And David, I couldn't answer that question. I couldn't answer that moment. I'm sitting here saying, I've got this business that I built intentionally for value. I knew what it was doing. I'm already taking 3-4 months off a year. I'm having fun at this point in business. It is growing 40-50% a year because of the marketing arm, right? And all the systems are built. And I said, I can't answer that. And then I said, let me think. No, I would spend more time with my wife. Here, I think she's going to die. I said, I'd spend some more time with my wife. I'd spend more time with my kids. And he said, then I think you should sell your business. And I said, but I'm going to be a failure. I'm the guy who teaches financial advisors and attorneys and CPAs how to scale businesses. I'm the guy who teaches this through the Exit Planning Institute, have thousands of students. I'm going to be a failure. And he said, actually, no, you're not, because you have something now that you've experienced. You know, there's a formula that if you just get out there and tell business owners, there's this formula that you can follow that will unlock the very freedom that we all dreamt of. So back to your root question. I intentionally designed the business around marketing because I knew that if I could design around marketing, I would have a point in my future. I didn't know when it was going to be that I either by decision or by default, that I would be able to sell this business because it had something built that was attractive to somebody else. It just so happened that when it came to time to sell, it was 8 figures of value versus the $3 million I thought of because of the systems I built.
So we are posting this January 2025.
Yeah.
So here's a marker in the ground for everybody who's listening. So what would you advise them to do that's going to put them on a much more profitable, positive, healthy trajectory in the time that they're investing in their business?
That's that question I'm asked a lot, as probably you've asked that question a number of times for people as well, for your guest. The very first thing I'll say as I unpack this is it's a mindset first. A mindset first. My dad used to say this 1,000 times, and I earnestly believe this, David. I've studied successful people of every stripe, every flavor out there. If you think you can or think you can't, you're right. Period. So the first thing is what is it that you want to achieve, and do you really believe you can achieve it? Let's get crystal clear on what your aspirations are. Mine was, how can I grow to a $5 million business in 6 years? That was my goal. Blew past that in 48 months. I have clients who say, Justin, I want to double my net worth in 36 months. You can do it. It's possible. Justin, maybe you're saying as a business owner out there, I want to take a time off, man. I want to go to the beach and enjoy my kids and not worry about the phone ringing, man. Maybe I want to take a month off and go to the Caribbean islands. Whatever you want to do, get crystal clear on that, number one, and then determine, can you do it? Because I promise you, as a business owner, you can do anything you set your mind to. I believe that about you. So number one is, what do you want and how bad do you want it? Number two is, where are you at today financially? Where are you at in your business value today? So we'll give you a link, David, that allows your team to go and actually find their value. Your listeners actually look at their value today and find their value gap. So you'll know how much business is pent up, how much demand is built up in your business that you could unlock tomorrow with the right processes. So second thing is, what's your value and what's your value gap? How much could you unlock? And then third is, find somebody who you trust as a coach, somebody who's been perhaps in your industry, perhaps as a good consultant like yourself, David, somebody who has been there or who's guided business owners to their ultimate goal. Because if you get crystal clear on what you want to achieve, you know the academics of how much is pent up. The coaching side is simply holding you accountable to that outcome, making sure that you don't chase shiny objects, making sure that you stay true to your mission, making sure that you stay determined to your goal. So if I were talking January 1st, as you're here listening to this today, hey, what do you want to achieve this year? Write it down, get crystal clear. Number two, what is your value and how much you leave it on the table unless you improve it? And number three, who can you hire? Who can you hire out there through either a course or a coaching program, a one-on-one coach somewhere that you deeply respect, that can hold you accountable to your mission? Friends, if you do that, 2025 can be your breakout year. 2025 could be the year that you set in things in motion that you could double your business or triple your business value in the next 24, 36 months. That's what I would say, David.
I think it's very wise. And I would add something that you've mentioned and it's underlying. I think, correct me if I'm wrong. Go ahead. I have no ego on this. But it sounds like you figure out where you want to go. And then on your own, with people you trust, with this coach or whatever, but then you're going to backfill the steps. What are the steps I get there with somebody who's got the guts to tell you, no, not going to happen. Or maybe it's just not going to happen in the time frame you want versus getting a bunch of yes people who are going to say, oh yeah, go for it. Go for it. Go ahead. And you're like veering off the road, going in the dirt through a barbed wire fence. So, you got anything you want to add on that? Because I love the advice you're giving. And I think it's a proverbial 2x4 across the forehead. Wake up, new year. Don't run this on autopilot. Take it to the next level, but here's some simple steps to get there.
So I'm gonna expound on what you just said, but I want to do it through a story. So every July, every August, I love to go offshore fishing. So we go down to the Florida Keys. We have a place down there. We take our boat and we'll run off 3, 4, 5, 10, 20 miles offshore to catch mahi, marlin, wahoo, whatever it is. Because me and the kids, we just love it. Whenever I get on that boat and we get through the breaks and we start heading offshore, I can put a destination in my GPS on the boat and the boat starts in that path, automatically starts driving out there. But what happens is the current, the waves, the wind will start making that boat kind of get a little off course. And that autopilot kicks it back in to make sure I reach that exact spot to where I need to catch or I believe that the fish are at that particular time. That's the metaphor. That's the story I want you to put in your head, because what happens is that we get this education. We get this education that you're provided through your service here, David, through your podcast, and we get educated and we get inspired, but we never apply it, and so we become stagnant. It's like that old farm pond out there. We've all seen it in a cow pasture. You drive by midsummer and it's slime green. Why? Because it's stagnant. What happens with us as business owners, if you don't have the right coach, somebody who can hold you accountable, as you just mentioned, then like that boat, like that pond, we begin and we get fired up in January, man. We know where we're going. And then Monday morning happens and it all falls to crap the next day. And we're wondering what happened. And then now we're back in the business. What the coach is able to do is they're able to say, look, if you're going to arrive at this destination, here are the actions that you have to do today. You're doing hard work, but you're not doing the difficult work, candidly, because you're lazy, candidly, because you're not accountable to your own future goals, candidly, because you don't have somebody holding you true to that. Now, that's that 2x4 across the head you just mentioned, but that's what the coach is doing. They're saying, look, you said you want to get here. Are we lying to yourself, or do you truly mean that? And as a coach for business owners, what I've found is we, myself included, yourself probably included, we like plain talk because it's easily understood. We also like those people who can hold us true to our mission and break through our own egos, our own skill sets, because we're talented as business owners. We like that person who can break through and hold us accountable to that true mission. That's how I was able to achieve my goal in my family, was having a coach who wasn't afraid to pull punches. I mean, this guy would right in the nose say, Goodbread, you're off. This is going to hurt you. Dude, you better stop it tomorrow. Like, yes, sir. Cool. And by the way, you're paying me a lot of money to tell you that. Yes, sir. Gotcha. So I think the coach is more, it helps us think about like that boat or like that pond. If you don't have that person there in your corner holding you accountable, then nothing's going to change. It's going to be the same old in 2025 as it was previous years.
It's going to be a gym membership. So, so January and out. And the other thing I want to emphasize, so when you said lazy, some of our audience might say, hey, I'm not lazy. I'm working my butt off, blah, blah, blah. I would suggest, and I'd love your feedback on it. Lazy, you're mentally lazy. You're lazy emotionally. You're not forcing yourself to work smart instead of hard. You call it difficult stuff. I would call it working smart, and setting aside the stuff that's just more comfortable or more fun or whatever it might be.
Yeah, water takes the path of least resistance. How many times have we heard that? You as a business owner, me as a business owner, we're all lazy because we work hard and we pride ourselves on being hard, because no one works as hard as me, the business owner. I've been there for 30 years, friends. I'm talking with you as a peer, as a brother here, right? But the reality is that coach can talk to us and say, you're being lazy because you're not doing the difficult work. You're not doing the things that truly matter to your vision. You're doing the things that perhaps drive revenue. You're doing the things that perhaps keeps your employees happy or your customers happy. That's all hard stuff. And that's the stuff we're tasked with. But you're not doing the things that are going to move the needle monumentally where you ultimately say you desire to be. Perhaps it's freedom, because mine was I wanted to take months off per year and travel the world and play with my kids and do things. Mine was freedom. Perhaps yours is a certain number and value that what you want to reach, or maybe it's a legacy, or maybe you want to give money to a charity. Whatever your value is, do you really believe it? Because if you did, you'd be doing the difficult work, but you're not because we're lazy because we like to do the hard work instead because it makes it feel good. So that's what I mean when I say lazy.
Awesome, Justin. Hey, we're just getting started, but we have to end because you're on a tight schedule. So, where should people go learn more about you? We will put the link. You'll provide it to us in the description here. So I do encourage people to go ahead and do that assessment of your business. But what else should they know about you leaving here? Because that's the tip of the iceberg in this time.
Yeah, so you can go to justingoodbread.com. That's my website. From there, you can look at our courses. We have a special right now that will extend to your audience, David. We have a Value Growth Academy, and what it does is it actually allows somebody to jump in for $97 a month. For $97 a month, you can jump in and you can get all the systems and processes that I use to grow my company. And I hop on a call once a month live to answer questions and go over the biggest talking point for that month. Like this last month, we went over how do you hire, what's the system for hiring somebody properly? The month before that, how do you build a marketing system and what works in your particular industry? But for your audience, they can jump in for 5 days free of charge, kick the tires, look at it, test everything. If you don't like it, hop out. So we'll drop that and we'll give that link to you. But I'd say check out justingoodbread.com. That's a great way to see what we do. You can find my books there. You can find our podcast there. We got 600 episodes teaching this type of content. We have a YouTube channel. There's a lot there that you can find from that particular website.
Awesome. Hey, well, thanks so much, Justin. Really appreciate you being on the show. This has been great. I'm going to be looking at this stuff too, to be candid. So I encourage the audience to do the same.
David, thanks for having me, brother.